I'm going to start recording. And we can go ahead. So welcome, Shawn and Tracey. Thank you for being here and putting on this fabulous webinar. Can't wait to learn all about National Inventors.
Okay, well, thank you. I see we have someone joining us, which is wonderful. Emily, I don't know if you collected any resources or materials to do some hands-on. So if you did, great. If not, that's okay too. We're just gonna learn a little bit and explore the Instilling an Innovation mindset and the pedagogy of the National Inventors Hall of Fame as a segue, as a session one and a segue into our really awesome session tomorrow with Tracey Elmore. So I am with the National Inventors Hall of Fame. We're a nonprofit organization, just to bring that to light, that we do have a mission. And part of our mission is to promote creativity and advance the spirit of innovation and entrepreneurship. And that's what I hope we're doing here today. So the innovation mindset is the pedagogy of the National Inventors Hall of Fame. And you can see that there are 8 different components of the innovation. Confidence and become persistent learners. They are learning how to use a process through design thinking, creative problem solving, to find answers to challenges and solutions to problems. STEM is always a part of what we do, but what sets our pedagogy apart from any other STEM programming is the idea that children need to understand what intellectual property is, and so do teachers, because it instills the concept that ideas have value, and they do, and we are surrounded by intellectual property in all aspects of our daily lives and beyond. And then entrepreneurship, and entrepreneurship not necessarily in the sense that all of our students are going to come up with a working invention and they're going to be entrepreneurs and owning their own businesses, but having that entrepreneurial spirit in whatever they do and become protagonists of their own learning and creating, regardless of their career path. So through invention education and working to instill an innovation mindset, students are going to be able to engage in iterative thinking. They're going to learn more authentically, as you'll see in Tracey's workshop tomorrow. They're going to become, I mentioned, protagonists of their own learning to build lifelong skills. So we maybe have thought of them as soft skills in the past, but they're becoming more and more hard skills. And they're going to become more resilient and confident by being able to take risks in a safe environment. And again, I'm simply today showing you kind of the high level pedagogy, and then with Tracey doing deeper dives, and you'll see how she's created a really fun and engaging, safe environment for her students to be confident and become leaders of learning in the classroom. So the design thinking process, if you're in STEM or hands-on inquiry based, this isn't anything new. The camp invention design thinking process is probably a little new though, because of adding that prototyping, which is invention education, terminology, protecting, again, that's the intellectual property component, and then pitching, the entrepreneurial presentation, presenting skills, being able to speak in front of your peers, being able to own your ideas and convince others that your idea is a good one. So that's where the design thinking process is going to take us. And we are going to start with identify. And the way we're identifying a challenge, just for the sake of this workshop, is to think about innovation and how innovation, just in the simple technology that we all use every day, the telephone, and there are just 4 iterations of this technology that I'm showing to you here. And there's lots of different designs and other iterations of the phone that aren't even here. Lots and lots of technology that has gone into it. But today's phone, as we all know, is the smartphone. And if you take a look, this is just half of the visual, but the technology that had to exist before we all have today and are able to enjoy the smartphone is amazing. And right down to that previous technology, the very simple phone that we learn about in history and social studies. So we're going to take what we all know as the smartphone, and our challenge today is simply for you to come up with your own iteration or innovation for your smartphone. So thinking about the question, wouldn't it be great if my smartphone could? Or what if my smartphone was able to? So just thinking about that as an idea, and you can see the poster, the visual here with identify. So what hasn't someone already thought of? We have different adapters for cameras and stands to hold it and our selfie sticks. But what's something else that you've always thought that you wish your phone could do? So during identification, and we all know that brainstorming is an important part of coming up with an idea, especially when you're working in groups or teams. Brainstorming by yourself is you can do that as well. And it's as simple as just very quickly taking Post-it notes and just writing as many ideas that come to you as possible. Maybe give yourself a time limit, 1 to 2 minutes, and then go back and take a look at those ideas and see if it's one that you might have some fun engaging in a process to see how you might create a prototype for that. So thinking of just your own personal brainstorming, wouldn't it be great if my smartphone could?
Cook my meals for me.
What's that?
Cook my meals for me.
Oh, I love that one. Wouldn't that be amazing? So one of my favorite cartoons was the Jetsons, and I always go back and think about the technology that they projected into the future in that, and that I think may have been one of them that they had met. Maybe it wasn't their smartphone. So in the process, and just thinking about Tracy's idea, Carmelina, you're jumping on. Did you have an idea?
I was thinking about it. Sometimes I really wish my smartphone that I could really reach out and touch them and handshake them, and they can come, like the Jetson, you press a button and that your food is right there. So why, since you haven't seen the person in a long time, that they can actually come through the screen and say, "Hey," to my cousins or whatever like that.
Now that both of those would be some technology and some innovating, and that's a really fun thing to explore, right? And that's what this is really all about, is the process. So engaging that creativity, engaging in thinking about what could be possible. And so as you're coming up with these ideas, we want to talk about sketching a little bit, because as you're going, if you're in the classroom and you're going through the design thinking process, and students might already know they're going to be working with materials for prototypes, that's the first thing they want to do, right? They want to get their hands, which is great because they're excited, but we kind of want to slow the process down just a bit and really get them thinking about what's their innovation going to look like? What kind of materials might they need to build that prototype? Is the prototype something that they can build, or is it technology and it's two-dimensional? And even if it's that as well, they still need to get their ideas visible and just log them, if you will, into maybe an idea notebook. So a creator's notebook, that's something that we really encourage teachers to have their students, because as adults, and you have to think about, we don't always land or solidify an idea immediately. It might come to mind, but think about when you're going to bed at night or waking up in the morning. A lot of times for me, that's when the ideas really start to form and come together. So allowing your students to start with an idea and then maybe come back to it, they'll have a different mindset, or they've had time to think about it. So that sketch is really important for that. And so I'm going to share with you one of our inductees, and he is I'm going to let him share with you, but he's going to tell us why sketching was so important for him.
Congratulations on a strong start to thinking like a designer and inventor. Once you have identified and begun to explore a challenge you want to solve or an idea you want to pursue, it can be very helpful to let your hands do some of the thinking. Many inventors have notebooks filled with ideas and sketches. Let's hear from Hall of Famer Don Arney, inventor of the firefighting Bambi bucket. His invention has saved thousands of acres of trees and potentially millions of animals from forest wildfires.
And it was a matter of as fast as I possibly could sketching it up before I lost it, you know? And I had it on paper, and then once it's on paper, it just expanded and expanded and expanded. And that led to another element, another element, another element. It's just basically, the idea was there. When you're doing that process, inventing something, developing something, you're always sketching. And it's kind of an important part of a constant priming of the pump to be drawing, just like a writer, by writing, is constantly drawing on that creative process.
It is important to note that sketches are meant to be quick and messy, with imperfect lines. They are simply a way to get ideas out of our minds and onto paper so that we can start to work with them. Be sure not to overthink your sketches or judge your artistic ability. If it helps you bring your idea into the world, then it is a successful sketch.
So a really great example of how sketching can lead to a really amazing idea. And the Bambi bucket is really something fun that students can identify with. And when you see that he did all of that thinking through sketching and drawing, it's really amazing and gives students just that little extra idea that sketching really is important. So I'm trying to move on to my next slide. There we go. So after sketching and really nailing down maybe what you think the prototype or the solution to the challenge may look like in 3 dimensions, now we want to build that. And Tracey has done a lot of exciting things in her classroom with her students this year, and you're going to see some different kinds of prototypes, some different, maybe it's not a prototype, but examples of solutions to different problems that the students had during this unit that she created. But in the invention world, we want to see something that is 3-dimensional, usually, and we use the terminology prototyping. You can also have students do rapid prototyping using clay. So if you have a quick problem that you want to present, you can do a rapid prototyping using the clay and giving a maybe 3 to 5 minute time limit. And just that is a really fun way to engage creativity. It's a fun thing to do maybe at the beginning of a class or at the end of class where you have a little bit of time, or periodically, just to kind of keep those creative energies going. And clay's a really easy medium to use and reusable, right? So you can just mush it back down and use it all over again. So if we were going to be actually using materials and prototyping, I always have background music and visuals playing, again, just to bring in all of the senses and really create an immersive environment. So this is just a little snippet of maybe some background music and visuals, and we're using nature as the backdrop. I'm gonna let it play for just a minute. So the process, we have identified a challenge. Wouldn't it be great if my smartphone could? We have gone through sketching. We have prototyped. Did I forget a process, Tracy? We have identified the challenge. Oh, you're on mute. I'm gonna get Tracy in here, y'all.
Sorry, you forgot explore.
Yes, explore solutions. Thank you. That's the brainstorming. So I skipped explore. Please don't skip that. So we've identified the challenge. We've explored solutions. We have sketched. We have prototyped. Now we're going into the invention education side of the design thinking process, which is to protect. And so I'm going to share a little bit about intellectual property. We're not going to do deep dives, but it is something that you as educators and students should be aware of, because it will come up in all walks of life and career pathways. So intellectual property rights protect ownership over creative works or inventions. And as you're even thinking about social studies or history, this is a way to show that our Constitution actually has this right in there. It's the patent and copyright clause of the Constitution. So our founding fathers knew that owning ideas was valuable, or allowing people to own their own ideas was valuable, and really has been the foundation on which this country was built and the way that we've been able to lead the world in technology and innovation for so long. So that intellectual property comes into play when you want to name your new innovation. So Tracy wants her smartphone to cook some meals for her. So maybe it's smart meals, or I don't know. And then Carmelina, she wants to shake the person's hand that she's talking to and really get to know them a little bit better. So Carmelina may have a name that she wants to come up with. And then think about what a brand or logo. So getting into that art side of things, and those students who maybe that's where they excel. This is where they can really have some fun with creating a brand or logo. And so I'm going to share with you what we'll do with those two things, but I just wanted to clarify, and you already know this, that copyrights are probably the most recognizable intellectual property for educators, because you see copyrights everywhere in lesson plans and online when you're looking for ideas. And copyrights go so much deeper. Movies are copyrighted, works of art. So if your students are creating a work of art, they can copyright their own creation, poems, lyrics, books, obviously, any type of media. So using a copyright that students can own that idea, you don't even have to go through the design thinking process. Your students create things in the classroom every day that they can copyright simply by using the copyright verbiage at the end or tagging their piece of art with that. Super simple. And then we get into trademarks. Another one that you're familiar with, you just probably haven't really thought through, like, oh, that's a trademark. So logos, recognizable word, name, symbol, or device that distinguishes a specific product or service in the marketplace. And so there's a lot of these that even if you took out the name, like Bird's Eye, if Bird's Eye, the words weren't there, you'd already recognize that as a Bird's Eye brand. Same thing with Starbucks. You could just see the green, that color green, and the mermaid image without the Starbucks coffee, and you would know it's Starbucks. So these become like they disappear in our everyday world. We just become so used to looking at them. Does anyone know what the difference between the circle R and the TM might be? So the circle R is if you go through the formal process of submitting an application for a trademark to the United States Patent and Trademark Office. That takes attorneys, legal fees. You can do it yourself. But the fun thing is that we can do it on our own by simply putting a TM next to a logo or right after the name of a product. So you can see just an example, the UPS logo here has that little TM. So what happened when they designed that logo, the designer put that TM there to stake claim to that design, and it shows that there is intent to apply for a registered trademark. Now, just because you use the TM, your students use it, or you use it for something doesn't necessarily mean you have to apply for it, but it does give you a little bit of protection if someone says, no, that was my idea. So something fun just to show students they can claim ownership to their brands and their logos and the names of things. So the next intellectual property that I want to talk about are patents. And there are 3 kinds of patents. There's the design patent, the utility patent, and a plant patent. And the plant patent is something that we're going to talk a little bit more about tomorrow, which it'll make sense when Tracey really digs in and shares more information about her unit. But a patent is an exclusive right granted for an invention which protects the rights of the owner in exchange for public disclosure, and it cannot be commercially made, used, distributed, or sold without the owner's consent. So again, patents, 3 different kinds. Patents are awarded by the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and trademarks are assigned. So the key features of your new innovation really lay the foundation for what your pitch or your marketing campaign, maybe it's not verbal, standing up in front of your classmates, maybe it's a poster, or maybe it's an audio file. This is where you can let students really have some fun and engage in their own kind of exploration of where they find their voice. So understanding the key features of their new innovation and who's the target audience. So if they wanted to get someone to purchase or use their new innovation, who's their audience? So we did the smartphone. Wouldn't it be great? We went through this whole the design thinking process. So easy to do in your classroom that you could use the smartphone because all students know what that looks like, but also you could use things like a toothbrush or an umbrella, a water bottle or sunglasses. And these are things that are low cost that you could find at the dollar store, maybe an umbrella if you go to Goodwill and find broken umbrellas, or have students bring in a broken umbrella, but really have a three-dimensional innovation or invention that you can start with and then use them to create their prototypes around. And in order to do that, all you need are some simple materials. They can just be upcycled materials. Maybe you do a craft supply drive once a year where moms that have all the extra supplies that can bring them in do, or even the last day of school, collect them and get them ready for the next school year when people, teachers, they throw all kinds of fun stuff away that can be easily used for creating. And students, anything new, anything that you bring into the classroom really does help build that creativity and extend the creativity as well. And it also shows students that they can do things with everyday household items, that they don't have to have fancy kits and fancy materials. They can use cardboard and plastic cups at home to innovate with. So I've mentioned Tracey's presentation tomorrow a couple of times. So what we went through was a very, all about the process, just a way to immerse you and students into that. And then Tracey is going to share with you how she took one of our blog post activities and actually created a year-long unit that she has been doing with her classroom and will continue to do so through the end of the school year. And she's going to highlight the different components of the design thinking process that she's gone through and give you a little more in-depth look at who she brought in from the community. And I'm really excited for her to share that. So it's same time tomorrow. If you haven't registered already, please do so. And one last question. There's a certain shape that you've seen repeated throughout the presentation. Does anyone want to share in the chat what that shape is? A logo. Well, yes, there's been lots of logos. The hexagon. Thank you. Yes, it is the hexagon. Thank you, Emily. And I found this really interesting. Why is the hexagon everywhere? And there's lots of different reasons that it's used in nature. And if you kind of have picked up, we're going to be talking about bees tomorrow. Tracey's going to share that. And you notice that in the design thinking process from Camp Invention, the hexagons were used there. We use it in the National Inventors Hall of Fame. We're going to show you a little bit about that in our Bricks and Mortar Museum. So a really fun tie through everything we're talking about is the shape of the hexagon, and there are reasons for that. We're going to share some resources, and I think they already are up on the STEM, South Carolina STEM website, and maybe Dallas could put, or Carmelina could put a link to the website in the chat. So we have lots of great information. And again, Tracey used an activity that she found on our blog, and there are over, I think, 80 activities now to choose from that you could, that have the lesson plans, the materials needed. And once Tracey shows you tomorrow, hopefully you'll want to use her lesson that she's created. So thank you so much. I know that we had an hour, but I think I'm going to end here. And if Emily, if you have any questions, the rest of us, we are recording this to post out, but if you have any questions, more than happy to take them.
Emily is actually going to be part of the presentation tomorrow. She
Oh.
is, yes, she is our librarian at my school, and she has been very important in this journey with resources and copyright and all that stuff. She put in the chat how important it is in STEM and as well as other places. She is an expert on all that. So,
Wonderful.
Yes. So,
Well, I'm glad you were able to join us, Emily, and I look forward to hearing more from you tomorrow. And Carmelina, did you have something?
Yes, I just had a question, and maybe Tracy will address it tomorrow. The part about sketching, I know you mentioned about the sketching part is so important, which I agree. And that's more of the drawing. You did make reference of storytellers that they write or the writers write their story, their ideas out. So my question is that when they're sketching, is it also put together with also, there are kids that will actually verbally write down their ideas and sketches or whatever, what they're trying to do. So they couple them off, not just with a sketch, or they may label their sketch, but some of them actually may write narratives as well to go with that. Is
Absolutely.
that something that is part of what you considered sketching, or is that something not required from students to do if they really don't want to? Or should
No,
it?
I think that's a valid question and point. So in the camp invention design thinking process, because we are bringing students to building a three-dimensional prototype, the sketching really is where we start. And as you may recall that he said it didn't have to be perfect, just, you know, put it out there. But the writing is as important, especially now where students are needing much more practice with ELA. And there's also a career pathway that you can go down. I mean, in just, you know, a short amount of time, I've kind of hit on so many different things, but as you'll see with Tracey's presentation, you can go off in so many different directions and really touch on the career pathway of technical writing. So students are always, you know, we're writing stories, we're writing poems, but technical writing is a critical position in an organization that is creating new innovations. And if you look at a patent, all of that, there are abstracts that are written. So you could definitely, if a child wanted to write an abstract instead of a drawing, by all means.
Well, and that leads to my next question, to see your input on that. When you were describing about the patenting or the trademarking of it, how do they know their ideas are authentic? In other words, that's my first question. And the second question is, are they mimicking through the process, or if their idea actually is something that they have created? Like, I love the entrepreneurship component of it. I mean, do they actually go through the real process?
What do you mean the real process?
In other words, first they have to research, obviously, to see if their idea is authentic. But then if they create for whatever the challenge you're working on, and it is truly authentic, that they want to trademark it, that's their idea, and they do want to sell it.
So
they go through the real process, meaning the real process of applying for patent or registered trademark.
At the National Inventors Hall of Fame, in all of our educational programs, and where this pedagogy comes from, is about the process of the design thinking and going through. Now, if a student happens to stumble on a new innovation that they could actually go down that path, first being able to recognize it takes a lot of research, but I can tell you, for a patent, you can do a patent search on the United States Patent and Trademark Office website. There is a patent search, you can see. but this is where it, intellectual property law attorneys, and this is where it gets really into things that are kind of beyond my pay grade, quite frankly. So that, you know, the trademark and the logo and all of that would need to be for it, that comes after, right? So if there is a patentable innovation, you can go, and there are independent inventor resources on the United States Patent and Trademark Office website. And if a parent or teacher has a child and they think, oh my gosh, this is something that we should really look into, that's where I would start. I would call the Patent and Trademark Office their independent inventor resource office that they do have. Does that help? Make sense? I don't know if I,
It certainly
okay.
does. Because, you know, our innovators are getting younger and younger, and it's
Yes, they are. Yes,
of
they
what
are.
they come up with, and some of them are like, you need to go.
Well, and I will say that I work with a couple of intellectual property organizations. And one thing that we've been really paying attention to is science and engineering fairs, where students are coming up with things that could be patentable, and making sure that anybody who's viewing those are signing a non-disclosure agreement, because that happens. It happens where people see an idea that a child has done and may tweak it a little bit and take it on as their own. So protecting our children and their ideas is becoming more and more critical, especially in these larger science and engineering fairs where students are really getting serious about their innovations.
Yeah, certainly. I agree.
In my classroom, I just take them through the process of it. I think in high school, though, and college, they get more into getting that applied if it's something really good.
Well, and it's like practicing for anything, right? So a star basketball player doesn't just jump onto the court without starting in Little League, you know, and really practicing and building skills. And so that's what we're doing with our younger students, is helping them build those critical thinking skills, having them become risk takers and be confident in their ideas. And when educators are able to create that safe space and that environment to let that blossom, they don't have to wait till high school, middle school, high school, because, well, middle school, whole different ballgame, right? But they don't have to wait till high school or college to find their voice. So helping them find their voice, become protagonists of their own learning is really the mission that we have at the National Inventors Hall of Fame. Well, Tracey, I'm so excited for tomorrow for you. And there's Emily. If there's anything else, we're all set.
Well, Shawn, on your Google slide or your PowerPoint, will you have the slide about the presentation tomorrow? I'm the 2020 STEM Educator of the Year. Amy's the 2021. Just want to make sure people realize.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're fine.
I'm glad you clarified that. So
Tracey, don't want to
is
take away from Amy. Yeah.
Okay. I'm moving too fast. COVID has put me too fast through the years, I think.
You're still a winner, girl. Always